For 40 years, you do the same quiet thing. You watch a balance grow. You circle a date on the calendar. You promise yourself that when you finally cross that line, everything will feel different. And then the day comes. You hand back the badge, you shake the hands, and you walk out into a Tuesday morning that belongs entirely to you. For about a week, it's glorious. The lie-ins, the empty diary, the sheer relief of it. But by week 3, something strange starts to happen. The rest stops feeling like rest. The house gets quieter than you expected, and the exhale you spent 4 decades chasing begins to feel less like freedom and more like a void. Because nobody tells you the truth. Retirement in Britain isn't a finish line. It's a cliff edge with a very nice view. And whether you land softly or fall depends on 2 numbers that most people never actually sit down and calculate: how much you need and how much you've got. So let's fix that today. The Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association, the body that quietly sets the benchmark for what British retirement actually costs, splits later life into tiers, rebased for 2026. Here is where the lines really sit. First, the modest tier. For a single person, that's around £13,400 a year. This is the no-drama life. The bills are paid, the fridge is full, you get one holiday you don't have to feel guilty about, and you're not lying awake over the council tax. But there is almost no slack in it. The moment you want a small car on the drive and a fortnight somewhere with a beach, you're already climbing toward £31,300 a year, the rung the industry politely calls moderate. Then, the comfortable tier. This is the one you're actually picturing when you daydream, roughly £45,400 a year for a single person, or £62,700 for a couple. At this level, life softens. You get private healthcare when the waiting list is too long. You get 2 holidays overseas, not 1. You get meals out that you never have to justify, and a car that gets replaced before it starts to embarrass you. And finally, the luxury tier. There's no tidy figure here, and there never can be, because luxury isn't a number, it's the absence of one. It's life without friction. It's never quietly checking a price tag. It's never declining an invitation for the wrong reason. It's reaching the point where money simply stops making your decisions for you. Now hold those 3 numbers in your head, because here comes the uncomfortable part. Most Britons quietly assume the state pension will carry them. In 2026, the full new state pension sits at around £12,548 a year, protected by the triple lock, the promise that it rises each year by whichever is highest, average earnings, inflation, or 2.5%. That sounds generous, until you line it up against those tiers. £12,500 barely scrapes the modest line on its own. It is scaffolding. It holds the structure up. But it was never, ever designed to be the house. And there's a catch arriving with it. From April 2026, the age at which you could even begin to claim it climbed to 67. So the floor turned up later than it did for your parents, which meant the years just before it were entirely on you to fund. Everything above that floor, the whole distance between getting by and actually living, is what we call the gap. And closing the gap is nobody's job but yours. So how do you know whether you're on track to do it? Here's the milestone test. It's brutally simple, and it runs off multiples of your salary. By age 30, you're aiming for roughly 1 times your annual salary sitting in your pension. So if you earn £30,000, you'd like to see about £30,000 in the pot. Most people are nowhere near this, and honestly, at 30, that's all right. You have time on your side, and time is the only ingredient that can't be bought back later. By age 40, the target is 3 times your salary. This is the decade where compounding quietly becomes either your closest ally or your deepest regret. There is no neutral here. By age 50, you want 6 times your salary. This is the wake-up call decade. If that number frightens you a little right now, good. Fear at 50 is useful, because you still have runway to act on it. And by age 60, you're aiming for 8 to 10 times your annual salary. That's the range that funds a genuinely comfortable retirement. The version where you're not rationing tea bags to make the month stretch. If you're behind, don't panic. And whatever you do, don't look away. Behind is recoverable. Ignored is the only version that isn't. But let's imagine you did everything right. You hit the numbers. You retire on a healthy sip. Surely now, at last, you get to relax. Here's what nobody warns you about. For 40 years, your entire financial identity was accumulation, watching the number climb. Retirement flips that overnight into drawdown, watching the number fall, and the human brain does not cope well with that reversal. I have watched genuinely wealthy people with far more than enough, start living as though they were broke. They cancel the holiday, they won't turn the heating up. And it isn't meanness, it's that every time the SIP balance ticks downward, some ancient part of them reads it as failure, even when the plan is working exactly as designed. The money, it turns out, was never the real problem. The psychology was. Which brings us to the single most dangerous temptation in the whole of British retirement, the 25% tax-free lump sum. When you first access your pension, HMRC allows you to take a quarter of it entirely free of tax. On a large pot, that's a genuinely life-changing amount of money landing in your account in one go, and the pull of it is enormous. The new kitchen you've promised yourself for years, the extension, the gleaming new Land Rover parked out front where the neighbours can admire it. Here's why spending it in year one is a quiet catastrophe. That lump sum was never just cash. It was the most productive capital you owned, the pounds with the most years of growth still left inside them. Blow it early, and you don't merely lose the price of the kitchen. You lose the next 30 years of growth that money would have compounded into. You've traded 3 decades of security for one very nice worktop. Take the lump sum with a plan. Never, ever take it as a reward. And this is the moment the money story becomes a human one, because the most dangerous stretch of your entire retirement isn't your 80s. It's the first 12 months. That is when the void arrives. That is when purpose, the thing your job quietly handed you every single morning for 40 years, suddenly has to be built by hand, from nothing. The retirees who thrive don't just have a financial plan, they have a structural plan, scaffolding for the soul. And it stands on 4 poles. Purpose, something that genuinely needs doing, something that actually misses you when you're not there. Movement, a body that keeps working, because a pension is worthless if you can't get up and enjoy it. People, relationships that don't quietly collapse the moment the shared office and the coffee machine disappear. And learning, a mind still reaching for something new, because curiosity is the only thing that stops the years from blurring into one long Tuesday. Get those 4 right, and the money finally does its real job. It disappears into the background, which is exactly where it was always meant to be. So, how much pension do you actually need to retire in the UK? Enough to clear the gap that sits above that state pension floor. Enough to reach the tier you truly want, rather than the one you'll grudgingly settle for. And enough, ideally, by the age milestones that tell you the plan is holding. But here's the part every spreadsheet leaves out. Retirement in Britain isn't a finish line you cross and then stand still. It's a new project you begin. Real wealth is having enough in your SIP to silence the fear, and enough in your heart to fill the Tuesday mornings. Build both. That's the whole game. If you learned something from this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to British Pensions with Jack. See you in the next one.